Okay, this is just a bit of an introduction to the interface of formz and how you can create some simple shapes and some simple modelling in formz. This will form the basis of some skills that you'll need for the later tutorials that I'll do. First of all, just having a look around at the user interface, a couple of important things to have a look at. We've got a toolbar at the top here where you've got some useful tools. I've rearranged my toolbar from what comes by default, so I like to sort of make use of my screen space as much as possible, and I spend a bit of time sort of analysing how I can get the most screen space. So you can see how I've moved these items here all just move around, they drag out of the toolbar and can float into the screen. So you can see how you can rearrange your workspace to something that suits how you want to work. So I'll just place mine, like I've said, in this arrangement because it suits me. This bar up here, make sure this one here, this is the input bar, I think they call it. Just make sure you leave enough space out the side here because this toolbar gets extra options in it as you start to draw items. So you need to leave about that amount of space that I've got there. In what I mean is if you resize this, you can resize these as well. Make sure you leave around about that much space when you resize that particular one, because there'll be some extra options that you'll want to work with there. And then you can place these in around wherever you want them to go. And also with this action toolbar here, you'll want to make sure that depending on when you click on different tools, you'll see the text changes in these. So some of the tools there, you can see it gets the explanation gets a little bit bigger, so you need to leave about that amount of space so you can read that. And I like mine down in the bottom left hand corner, like in a command prompt sort of area, so I can read that. And you can have a look at the different arrangement I've got for these others and suit yourself to your own pattern that you want. The other thing that you've got over here is the formz palette, and here you've got a range of lots of different palettes that you can open and close as you need. Normally I open and close just by double clicking on the title bar here. So if you double click, you can see how you can collapse all of those different palettes. They're fairly self-explanatory to people who have a bit of CAD background, but we'll go through them as we need to. The ones that you'll probably want to open initially will be your tool options and also your objects. We'll show you a little bit how they get used very soon. Actually. Now the next thing you'll need to do is to navigate a little bit. So you can zoom in and out with your middle mouse scroll wheel, just scrolling in and scrolling out. You'll get used to that. And then you can also pan your view by clicking and holding your scroll wheel and panning around. And then if you press and hold your command key in Apple or control key for Windows, and then use your scroll wheel, press and hold and drag your middle mouse scroll wheel, then you can orbit around. So that's basically how you manipulate your viewing directions, etc. Now I'll take you straight into a couple of tools through here. Probably the first one, some of these tools are very self-explanatory. I'll just show you a couple of brief ones in the later tutorials. We'll go into some more. But I'll go straight into the Draw Rectangle tool. And before we start to actually draw the rectangle, the tool options is quite important. You get a few different options and I'll show you in a minute. But at the first one, I want you to just try the first option through there. And don't have the insert selected. We'll show you what that insert does in a second. So once you're doing this rectangle, you can then just click on the screen and drag out into a direction. You get a couple of nice guidelines to work with, so you can see this magenta guideline tells you that you're actually drawing a square, but if you don't want to, you can draw any rectangular shape as you go, and just click and that finishes that rectangular shape. Well, in formz it's actually not quite finished yet. You're still in a finalized part of the command, which lets you either press the escape key or move on to another command, or you get these control arrows showing up, which allow you to, after you've placed that rectangle, it allows you to click and drag that shape to a new position using those controls if you wish. But if it was in the right position, or if you've now controlled it to the right position that you want it to be, you can simply either press the escape key to get out of that command, or press the pick tool, or start drawing another object using either that command or another command. Okay, so I'll press the escape key this time to finish that off. Okay, so what you can do now, I'll just take you on to, so you can draw lots of different shapes. As you can see under the draw tool there, you've got, you know, rectangles and circles and polygons and ellipses and so on and so forth, and that's just a small selection of the tools that you can use. But I'll show you now the Reshape tool down here. Google SketchUp users or SketchUp users will know this is push-pull. So you can see how you can click on any face and then push-pull it into a different direction. So it's fairly simple to use. So you can now extrude a 2D shape that you've created. So what I'll show you now is we'll go back to the drawing the rectangle tool and just show you how you can control that with different options. Instead of drawing the 2D shape and then using the Reshape tool to extrude it, you've got an option where you can do this 3D extrusion in the one go. So it gives you the options. As soon as you click on that option, you can control the height that it's going to go in at, or you can leave it set dynamically. And we'll just draw another shape out here over on this plane, and then straight away the second click it then wants you to put the height in because we've got the extrusion option selected, and then you get a set of controls again to finish off. Now that might be the right size, so you can just let it there, or it enables you to straight away reposition that to a new place if you wish in either of these, any of these controls. Okay, so if I hit the escape key, I'll finish that. So I'll just show you now a new tool here. I've got these two cubes or two rectangular prisms here. What I'll do is on one of them I'm going to draw just a simple line, and I'll show you that as you draw lines, as you hover your mouse over the top of a plane, you can see the gridded work plane changes to orientate itself onto that surface. It sort of intuitively knows that if you're hovering over that plane, you want to draw something on that particular surface, so it changes that work plane for you. We'll show you how you can lock work planes in future tutorials, but just for now I'll get you just to keep your eye on the work plane that you want to draw on, and just make sure that you don't migrate over onto another surface which swaps the plane over, and just stay on the plane that you want to draw on. You'll also see that you can snap to different positions. So as I hover close to an end point, it's snapping to the end point, and as I hover to a midpoint, it's snapping to a midpoint. And down the bottom here I've got my snap controls. You can see how you can control more snapping points there. So you can also snap to intersections, tangent, perpendicular, tangent, and the center snap is interesting in formz because in a lot of CAD programs the center will only find the center of circles and things, but if I click that option for snapping to the center, you'll find that you can even find the center of rectangles and things like that. Any shape it'll find the center of. So I can sort of click and draw a line. Now notice over here it's quite important. As I'm drawing this line, well, you can see at the moment I'm in my 3D extrusion type tool. I just want to draw a simple line on this face. So I don't want to extrude this line. So in other words, I'll change to just a 2D surface, and I'm drawing a simple 2D surface through here. And it's important at the moment, I want to show you, don't have this insert selected. We won't draw this line inserted to anything, and I'll just draw a line, you know, across this corner. Okay, and I made sure that the reference plane was correct through there. Okay, so that's just a simple line, and you can see how you could then, you know, draw from a midpoint and draw another line and so on and so forth. So I'll escape out of that command there. And I just wanted to show you the difference through here now. If I was to reshape that surface here and click that surface and push it back to a different position, you can see that those lines were not inserted into that object. So the lines were just drawn on that plane, and it lets you then re-extrude planes away from those lines if you wish. So the important difference I wanted to show you, if I go to the line tool again, and if I have the insert object option selected this time, it automatically will now break up that object surface with that line, because I'm inserting that line into that object. So if I use the Reshape tool now on this surface here that I use the insert option on the line, it lets me reshape that object. Okay, so I'll just show you that again with another line at the top surface here. It'll go from that endpoint through there to this endpoint through here, and I can then use the Reshape tool on this part. Okay, so that happened like that because as I drew the line, I just make sure whether or not I want to have the insert option selected. SketchUp users will be familiar with the fact that whenever you draw a line on a surface in SketchUp, unless you have grouped the objects that make up that surface, the line will automatically split that surface. But in formz, you don't have to group the object. The objects are automatically grouped for you. And if you want to break up that object to reshape it, you just use the insert option. It gives you that option to either break up the surface or not break up the surface. Now, that's how you can model and sculpt by breaking things up. But sometimes you want to add things on. So I'll just go back to my rectangle tool and show you that. And as I do this, I'm going to turn insert off and just start with a new rectangular shape. And I'll just create a new rectangular shape on this corner here. I'll just make it a different size, something like that. And then I'll use my Reshape tool to reshape this into a different object. But as you can see through here, in your objects over here, you've got different objects that are being created, and as I hover over the top of them, you can see that this piece here is a different object to that piece there. So sometimes you want to add objects together to create the one object and clean up into a clean solid. So over in the Modify tool here, the first tool is the Union tool, and it lets you select objects that you want to union together. And the difference with that is this now becomes one object. Okay, and the objects are listed over through here. Now, I'll just show you some visibility options here now as a closing point, and you'll notice that all of these objects that you've got drawn at the moment have got object names, and they've got a visibility to them. I'll just sort of pick on this one through here, and if you click on under this little eye, if you click on the visibility, it goes into a ghost mode, and click on it again, it's not visible. So I'll do another one through here. If you just watch the screen ghost, I've got to pick some that you can see the effect of. There you go. That object through there is now not visible. Now, every time you do one of these operations inside SketchUp, inside formz, it actually, whenever I did that union operation, it kept the original two separate items and made a third overall item, and what it did is it ghosted out the original two items. So I can see that this object 8 here was one of my original items that I created, so I could actually hover over the top of that one, right click and press delete. I don't want to rename it, so I'll just right click and delete it. And on the screen that deletes that particular object. And if I find this other one, it's probably this object, no, that was the line over there, object 4. Just have a look through here. Yeah, okay. So that's my that's the final one. You can see as I turn it on and off, that's the one that I probably want to keep. So I'll just turn it off for the moment, so it's not showing up. and I'll just have a look at where that other piece is. So it's not that one, it's that one. So here was my other individual piece. Now I could right click and delete that one now, so it's gone. And if I turned this object 3 back on, that was the final object. So you don't have to delete those ghosted items, but just so you realise that any time you do a combination of things in formz, it'll keep the original 2 objects, it'll turn them into a ghosted view, and it creates a new object for you. So it allows you to always go back to the original things that you created if you wish. But if you want to clean things up as you go, you just need to identify the ghosted ones and then delete them out of your scene. So I'll just stop the video through there. There's a few pointers in terms of getting started with formz and modelling. When we come back to the first tutorial, we'll actually start to create some building shapes and show you how you can control dimensions.